Okay, so it is Wednesday, December 16th, 2020, and this is for Regional Cuisine. We are in the Southwest region for our unit this week. So today is going to be a Santa Fe seasoning that we're going to use with some chicken and some lime cilantro rice to finish it off. So I'm going to start with making the seasoning mix, which is posted to your Google Classrooms and will be posted with the video as well. All right. So you're going to need a good size mixing bowl to put all these things in. And with this blend, you can take all your spices, put them together, and then put them into little jars, and you can use it as needed, right? So I'm going to be using this on chicken breast today, but you can use this for doing tacos, fajitas, all kinds of things. You can also add things into stuff like soups, right, as you go. So mixing bowl, long list of spices that we're going to be adding into this, right? The first three of them are going to use a 1/4 cup measure, so 1/4, okay? And then we're going to be using a tablespoon for everything else. So those are the simple tools. I've got a little whisk in here to make sure everything gets well blended together. But I'm going to be starting off with a 1/4 cup of chili powder, okay? And it's a 1/4 cup because we're making a batch of this that I can then have on hand to do other recipes later, okay? So 1/4 cup of chili powder, which is going to give us our spice, right? 1/4 cup of ground cumin, which is going to give us that nice Mexican flavor. Right? This is a nice blend, right? We're going to use a 1/4 cup of paprika, right? You don't have to go buying all kinds of super expensive spices. Look for these, in your local dollar stores and things, and you will find plenty of those stores have those. So I've got another container here. We're just going to add a little bit more from this one, right? And you can use any kind of paprika, Hungarian or regular. So 1/4 cup of each. So chili powder, cumin, and paprika, right? And we're starting to get that really nice deep shades of red mixed in there. And then now we're going to do a tablespoonful of ground black pepper. So you can use your own pepper grinder to grind it ahead, or you can buy pre-ground. We're using pre-ground for this just for ease, right? So pepper is going to give us flavor, but it's also going to give us a little bit of spice. So 1 tablespoonful of black pepper. And then we're going to be using some ground coriander, right? And that is the seeds from the cilantro plant. So this is going to give us a nice flavor as well. So we're layering many flavors into the seasoning blend. And I do this every few months or so. And then when I run out, I make another batch, right? And then we're going to be adding in some extra heat. So a tablespoon of cayenne pepper. Now, if you like your food really spicy, you can make these stronger, right? So you can play around with seasoning blends when you're making your own, right? Versus buying something in the grocery store already made. Then we're going to add in 2 tablespoons of garlic powder. 1, 2 of those. Okay. And then 1 tablespoon's worth of crushed red pepper. So another layer of heat. So that'll give us some nice little flakes of pepper in there as well. And we're going to do 2 tablespoons of kosher salt. So nice coarse ground salt. You can use fine salt if that's all you have. That's okay. So we're going to do 2 of those. And 2 tablespoons of dried oregano. Okay. This is going to help give us some of those little green flakes in there, but also flavor. 2 tablespoons worth of that. All right. And it was supposed to be 2 tablespoons of coriander, so I'm going to put an extra 1 of those in, just because I'm trying to do this quickly here. So that's why it's good to double check your recipe before you're done. Okay. And that's it. That is my seasoning blend, right? So you want to mix this really well together. And I'm just using a whisk. You don't need to grind this or anything because these are all in a powder form, right? Already ready to use. This is strong stuff. But like I said, this is great for using for quick tacos with chicken. Put a little bit in your tortilla soups and things, right? So this is that Santa Fe seasoning blend. Like, the recipe will be attached to the video, but it's also in your Google Classroom, okay? And I'm just going to set this to the side for now so we can work on our chicken breast, okay? What I did earlier, too, is I made some basmati rice, right? So here, okay? I have that already all set to go in the rice cooker. So it was 1 part rice, 2 parts water. Rice cooker takes about a half hour. So when you're doing it at weeknight dinner, get that stuff ready, start that first. So by the time you're done everything else, your rice is all set and good to go, right? So I've got my chicken breast here, a little wet cloth to put on my counter so my board doesn't slide. And I've just got just a plain chicken breast, nothing fancy, right? This is almost a pound chicken breast, so it's a good size though, right? So what you want to do with this is we want to get this thinner. So if I'm doing a weeknight meal, I want to have it cook quickly, right? So I'm just going in here and taking off any big chunks of fat, right? Trimming a little bit off the edge here, okay? And you can get rid of that. So I want to get this into a thinner size piece and something that's going to cook really quickly in my cast iron pan, right? So I don't want to mess around, you know, especially after a long day of work, things like that. You want something that's fast, okay? So I'm going to come in here on this outside edge and I'm going to butterfly this chicken open. And I'm also going to pound it thinner too. So you're just going to take your knife, your hand on the top of the chicken breast and start to slice in, right? You can see that cut there. Then just using the tip of your knife, keep coming in and cutting that open. This technique is called butterflying, right? So we're baking the chicken basically into 2 parts, and we're butterflying it open, okay? So you can see that there. Now you can see this still has some thick parts to it though, right? So I don't want to leave it like this. I want this to cook a lot faster and quickly in my pan. So I'm going to take and pound this a little thinner, right? So I'm going to use a couple of things. So meat mallet, you may have one of these at home in your kitchen drawer somewhere, right? It comes with 2 sides. So you've got a flat side, which is what I'm going to use today. And this side here with the little bumps is more for tenderizing. So if you've ever seen cube steaks in the store and things with the little bumps and dots on it, that's because I use this side. I don't need to be that rough on the chicken. So I'm going to use the flat side for this today. But I don't want chicken juice splattering all over my kitchen either. Okay, so you can use a piece of parchment paper, which I got here, or wax paper. We're just going to tear a piece off, and I'm going to put my chicken inside this, okay? So that way, it's not splattering all over the place. So put your chicken inside the paper, and then that way, when you pound it, slide this over just a little, right? The chicken juice will stay inside the paper, okay? So we're just going to take this and make it so that it's uniform across. So this is also a great recipe after a stressful day, right? Because you can work out a little aggression on your chicken. Right, and that's the problem with chicken breasts is that they're thicker on one side and they taper down. So I want them to be more uniform and even across, right? And you can do this anytime with any piece of chicken, right? Just giving it a little bit of pound, like I said, and thin it out, and it will cook much faster, okay? Now, the next thing I want to do is season this chicken up, and I'm going to slice this down the middle just to make 2 parts, just so it'll be a little bit easier to handle. Come in here with that knife. And now I'm going to use that Santa Fe seasoning blend that I just made that I would normally have ready to go in my cabinet in a jar and put it onto chicken, right? Like I said, this is a ton of different spices and flavors, okay? So you don't need to do anything else except coat your chicken in your seasoning, right? So take a good handful and don't be shy, right? We're talking Santa Fe cuisine, right? You want some spice, you want some heat and flavor. And by doing it on the parchment like this, or wax paper, I'm not going to lose these spices either, right? Because I can take this and move it around to soak it all in. Okay. Don't forget the other side, right? You don't want one-sided seasoned food, right? So a nice, good layer of seasoning. Don't be shy. Like I said, if you like the spices hotter, add more, things like cayenne pepper or stuff like that. Okay. So we're just pressing that seasoning in really good. Use the paper to get the rest of it on there, right? And now my chicken is ready to go into the pan. So I've got set up my little burner over here, right? And my cast iron skillet and a pair of tongs. And you have something handy to pull the chicken off of the fire, right? A little bit of olive oil, vegetable oil, things like that. Just something to coat the pan, right? And this little burner heats up super fast. So just going to give it a second for that oil to get hot. Just make sure we're coating the pan. Okay. And now with chicken, remember, you still need to get that chicken cooked all the way through. So you want to make sure that the inside is not pink, but also, you know, having a thermometer handy. I've got one right here. Make sure that the inside of the chicken is 165 degrees, right? We want to make sure we kill off any salmonella or any other bacteria that may be on there. Okay. So just letting that oil, just let it to the point where you can feel it's getting hot. It gets a little bit of smoke to it. Okay. You don't need much. You don't need a lot of oil, just enough to coat the bottom of the pan. And then we're going to put our chicken in. Okay. When you're putting things into a pan that's got oil and stuff like that, make sure too, when you lay it down, you flip it so that it's towards away from you, right? So that way you're not getting splattered with hot oil. So I start here in front to me, and I'm going to lay that down. It's starting to get a little sizzle. Okay. So with this nice thin pieces of chicken, like I said, this is almost a pound chicken breast. So make sure you throw this away. You're not reusing this. Okay. We're going to get rid of our chicken covered board here as well. This side to be washed. All right. I'm going to bring in for a close up. All right. So we're going to let that sear for a couple minutes on each side. Make sure that it's cooked to 165 all the way through. Keeping an eye on the heat level as we go. And then we're going to talk about rice. So when you're thinking of a quick dinner, having that rice cooker handy is awesome because you can just put your stuff in, turn it on, let it go. Like I said, they take about a half hour depending on the model. So just make sure that you're reading your instructions for your brand. But after you use it a couple of times, you'll kind of know what your cooker is like, right? And I've just got a simple one here that I've used before, right? We see. It's nothing fancy. It's just got a cook warm button on it, but it does the job, right? You don't have to buy the most expensive rice cooker, okay? So what I did was a basmati rice, which you will see is nice and light and fluffy, okay? So I'm going to take about half of that into this bowl here. We're going to get our rice prepped for our final dish, okay? And most rice cookers come with a little measuring cup. Typical with rice is 1 part rice, 2 parts of water, okay? You can also season your rice, so a little bit of salt if you prefer, you know, or other seasonings. You can also cook your rice in things like chicken broth if you want a really nice deep flavor, okay? So that should be plenty there. So I'm going to cover up the rest to keep it warm. And I'm going to take a peek at my chicken real quick, too, right? So I just want to look underneath, see how it's looking. Oh, yeah. I'm going to let you see this up close here. All right. So that color already showing up on that chicken, okay? So I'm just going to leave that sitting for another minute or so. I'm going to turn my heat down slightly because, like I said, this little propane burner here is great. It builds heat really quick, and that cast iron pan is super hot. So we're going to give that another minute or so before I flip the chicken over. But what I want to do is get my rice ready, right? So I've got the basmati rice, and I just want to dress it up a little bit so it's not just plain rice, okay? So I'm going to be adding in some fresh squeezed lime juice and some cilantro, right? So we use coriander in our spice mix, which is the seed from the cilantro plant. And so I'm going to take some of this fresh stuff and chop that up. I got my clean cutting board here. I'm going to also flip it over, right, so that the chicken, there's nothing on this side of it. Okay. And now I'm going to flip my chicken. So I want to show you this back side of that real quick, right? Look at that. It's getting all nice and brown and caramelized. So we're going to flip both pieces over. So this is a fast weeknight meal. I don't, we don't often have time to do things, that take hours to make, but you still want to eat good food, right? So we're going to take our lime and just roll this a little bit to help get that juice out a little bit more, right? Softens it up a little bit. We've got our fresh lime, and I'm just going to squeeze this lime juice right into the rice. It's going to give us a nice layering of flavor for the final dish. Make sure that we got no seeds. Now, if you don't like cilantro, because it's one of those things, those herbs that you either love it or you hate it, right? A lot of people like it. A lot of people think it tastes like soap, okay? So you don't have to put the cilantro in. You could just use parsley. Just something to give a little bit of green, right? Because this plain rice is boring, all right? I'm going to put a little bit of salt in here. A little pinch of kosher salt. And then I'm going to put in my cilantro, okay? And I'm still keeping an eye on my chicken. So I'm just going to break off a nice chunk of the cilantro. And we're going to rough chop it. Okay? So keeping your hand on top of that knife, right? Keep bunching it back up. And this smells good. Like I said, but a lot of people don't like it, so it's okay. You can leave it out. Right, we're going to chop this up a little more. But I want to check the chicken, right? So here's our chicken. Doing its thing. Look at that beautiful color. So it's been on the other side for a couple minutes now, so I'm going to take the temperature. So you want to make sure you're going into the thickest part of your chicken and that it hits 165 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay. We want to see where we're at. Going up quickly. But that's why we pounded it thinner, right? So it doesn't take quite as long to cook. Well over 100 degrees. 120, 130. All right, so I'm going to flip these back over so we're getting a nice even cook throughout. So we're close around 130 or so, so it's going to need a couple more minutes just while we're finishing up this rice, right? Like I said, we're going back to our cilantro. Try and get it nice and finely chopped. So I said, this is going to give flavor to your rice, but it is also going to give a lot of color, right? And you eat with your eyes, right? You want to eat something that looks pretty. Right? If you want to be, authentic, use the fresh herbs as much as possible, right? And cilantro is readily available in our local grocery stores, and it's not super expensive ingredient. Right? We're going to dump that right into the rice. Okay. We want to make sure that this gets mixed through thoroughly. But look at that difference already, right? So we take plain white rice, and now we get this beautiful colored rice. This would be great for putting inside burritos as well. Or serve on the side with some fajitas. Okay. A little taste. Very good. Right? You always want to taste your work as you go. See if it needs a little more salt. See if it needs a little bit more lime juice, right? Depending on the size of your limes, if they're a little on the small side, you might need 2. Okay. All right. So we're going to take our chicken here and check that again. And remember, your thermometer takes a couple of seconds to get up to where it needs to be. You want to make sure that the thermometer stops going up and gets fully cooked all the way through. One's looking good. I'm going to check the other one. And then we're going to plate this up. Perfect. All right. Okay. So I'm going to shut this burner off. Leave the hot pan there for a second. Get rid of this cutting board. Cleaning as you go. I'm going to grab our plate. Shifting things around here just a little. Give me a sec. All right. So now we're going to put our chicken on the board. So I'm just going to take one of these. Like I said, by splitting those whole chicken breasts into halves and butterflying them and putting them out, right, a little bit goes a long way, right? A lot of people aren't going to eat a whole pound worth of chicken for dinner, right? Some of you guys might, be able to handle that, but I know chef's not. So we're going to take and do a couple of things here, right? So I'm letting my chicken rest here for a minute. I'm going to take some of my cilantro lime rice right onto my plate. And it helps to have a nice colorful plate too, right? So whatever size serving that you feel comfortable eating, right? So we have our rice on the plate, and then we're going to add our chicken. Okay, and then I got a final garnish for this as well. So with the chicken, you want to take and cut this so that way you get some nice little strips. Okay, so a nice sharp knife. Use your tongs to help hold it in place. And we're going to add this right on top of the rice. Use the knife to transfer. Okay, so you don't need a lot, so this is plenty. That would be plenty for me. And then to finish this off, okay, I'm going to add a little bit more fun to this plate. And I'm going to do a little corn and black bean salsa. Okay. So this way you can add another little layer of spice to your mixture. I'm just going to do a little salsa on top of the chicken. This is our little garnish here. You could do a regular salsa, but the corn and black bean one is fun, right? And then if you want to get extra fancy, take a little bunch of your cilantro. Look at that, right? Looks like you just went to a restaurant and picked up dinner, right? So the rice, some cilantro, some lime juice, the Santa Fe seasoning for the chicken, which can be used for many dishes, right? A little bit of salsa, and that's it, right? Dinner in less than a half hour, because like I said, the rice cooker takes about a half hour, so you can do everything else in that time. If you have a seasoning blend already made up, right, like I do here, all I do is put it into some little mason jars, or save your old empty spice jars. So now that like I've got this one's empty, I'll wash that, put it in my cabinet, and I can put spice blends into that too, right? Then you have it all set, ready to go, and you have a quick, easy dinner that's yummy, but also healthy too, right? Instead of eating takeout all the time. All right. So that's it for today. So hopefully you guys learned something new. You can add a little spice into your meal routine.